Oh, and then the two others, yeah. It's the way it is. Yeah, but that's-
By the way, I wanted to pass out of my seat, but I saw you.
You saw my email, Mandy.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't see that. I saw you.
It's a good one.
My wife, my boys.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
pretty
they're
good
rolling
credits,
out one
right?
right now.
Yeah, me too.
I didn't see you.
Well, I was hoping.
I just caught you out. You were through the door, basically.
Yes.
All right. Are we ready? 1 minute.
Mhm.
Okay, so we are live. It's 5 o'clock. We will wait for our other members to arrive and then we'll kick the meeting off.
Maybe you're rolling. Yeah, we gotta get one more.
Yeah, let's get one more.
I'm gonna,
It's can't find it.
yeah, and I'm gonna enter it. I thought I did, it's one of those things. Ruthie's definitely on here. She said she was gonna be here.
It's her.
Spoken to her. Staff is Christina's. Just slammed that channel.
So she's resigning.
Huh?
She's resigning.
No, we don't know.
It's been like 6 months absent.
I agree.
Can't make it.
I agree. I agree. Well, it's like I thought I wasn't gonna be here for August. I was here for hours. But yeah. Chaos. It's like I just go to the ranch. Just 'cause you can see it.
On our-
Sometimes you have a conflict, and, that's that, but.
All right.
All right, we're going to kick off the intro with Mr. Webb arriving.
It's the practice.
Well, thank you for being here. This is the October 4th, 2023 meeting of the City of Charleston Board of Zoning Appeals Site Design. Present are Amanda Barton, Jeff Webb, Calvin Yuji, myself, Joel Adrian. Present from the planning staff, Eric Schultz, Lee Batchelder. These proceedings are being recorded. We ask that those who speak identify themselves for the record. We will conduct this meeting in usual fashion. We will first receive information from city staff about the application and their recommendation. If the recommendation is favorable and no one objects to the application, the matter is uncontested. The board reserves the right to ask questions of staff, applicant, or others in attendance prior to rendering a decision. If, however, the city recommends against the application or there is opposition to the application, we treat the application as contested and hear from the applicant and anyone else who is in favor of the application. Next, we hear from anyone opposed, followed by a short rebuttal from the applicant. We will then close the public hearing portion of the meeting for that particular application to open discussion to the Board of Zoning Appeals members only. We will then make a decision to approve with conditions, deny, or defer the application. Board of Zoning Appeals Site Design has the authority to do three things. 1, hear appeals to decisions of the zoning administrator. 2, grant special exceptions, fact-finding function of the board. And 3, grant variances to the zoning ordinance. If the application meets the hardship test outlined in section 54(9)24 of the ordinance. The board may deliberate and make a final decision on a matter by a majority vote of members present at the hearing and qualified to vote, provided that not less than a quorum are present qualified to vote. For a variance to be granted, the Board of Zoning Appeals must make the following findings. A, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. B, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. C, because of these conditions, application of the ordinance to that particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict utilization of the property. And D, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent property or the public good. The character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. So that said, are we going to stick with the agenda?
Yeah, we'll
change.
Well, there's Paul there.
Okay,
Let's do the minutes and then we'll explain. We're going to go out of order.
okay, for the record, Paula Summers has just joined the meeting. So our first item on the agenda is item A1, which is a review of the minutes from the July. And the August, September, yeah, September 6th meeting. Okay. There, has everybody had a chance to review the minutes? Are there any questions or changes required? If not, is there a?
I make a motion to move to.
Motion for approval by Spartan, second by Mr. B. All in favor, aye in favor.
Aye.
Aye in favor, anyone opposed? Motion's approved. 1, 2, 4. Alright, so are we gonna go to E2? You say 4-0. It's 4, right? 1, 2, 5.
5.
It's Clemson math, baby. That's how we do it. Go Tigers. So,
Yes, Mr. Hugie may have to leave the meeting early, so if you don't mind, we're going to jump out of order because we have to have one member recuse himself, Mr. Jeff Webb. So we're going to jump to B2 so that can be heard. Then we'll resume order.
right, you get to sign off. Get your form there. You have that form here.
Yes.
All right, I'll read this in while you're doing that. So item B2 is River Road, Johns Island. TMS is 312-00-00050. It is zone C and D. Request a variance for section 54-327 to allow the removal of 8 grand trees. Request a variance for section 54-330 to allow reduced impervious construction setback near the bases of 6 grand trees. Charleston County School District is the owner, the applicant, ADC Engineering.
So Sebastian, you're present. Yeah, good. Okay. Let's go. I'm going to have to zip through some. Okay, River Road, James or Johns Island. This is the application. Their letter explaining hardship. So we heard this case in March of this year, and I'll explain why it's back. This is the residual lands within the Swaggart's Landing neighborhood district. That's a district where it's by right if you meet all these criteria, and you have to reserve an area that is to be developed as a mixed use district. Schools are permitted in that district, so the neighborhood is basically built out. I think there's a couple of lots yet to be built upon for single family homes, but as you can see, this area has roads stubbed out to it for the future development. Zone conservation, and that's a zone district that allows the neighborhood district to be developed by right. So you can see we're in, this was pasture land about 20 years ago when the neighborhood district came to be, and the original layout occurred. But the cattle left and it's now young pine, but there are a lot of grand trees scattered about. And a freshwater wetland, obviously. This is the master plan. This was revised in 2019, but you can see the land uses associated with the neighborhood district open space. So the reason it's back is in March, they were working off a freshwater wetland delineation that is on your left. They can explain why the Corps was back out on site, but they grew in size. And it's very critical for the city to have those connectivity, those connections to the stub outs. So you can see how the wetland on the right-hand side kind of grew south and east, if you will, a little bit, and caused a few issues with the previously approved layout. This is just the grand tree master list of trees on site. So this was the previously approved site plan, and I'm going to use my little red dot. As you can see, in this scenario, we were introducing a roundabout that would connect this small piece of public road to the River Road roundabout planned. And then the school, obviously, and this would be a public road connecting over to this public road. And this is a bus lot. And at the time, employee parking was going to be here. The bus employee office, and then the rows of. Note that with the circle, the entrance to the parking lot was here. But with the growth of the wetlands, that kind of tinkered with the that existing layout. Unfortunately, the city's okay with the three-way stop public road, but then they'll have their bus entrance off of that intersection there. And in order to get as many buses and the capacity, they moved the office down and then the employee into this grove. And again, this road, if you were to try and swing out and miss the wetlands, there would be a pretty significant impact to the land use as well as grand trees. So the 8 trees are those in red, and that's due to the change in the site plan. So again, the trees that were previously approved with the driveway here, and you all conditioned that some trees be preserved, and that was in March. This is now October's layout, and this is a low point in the road, obviously a wetland, and Moonbeam kind of drains down toward the connection point. So they have to get water off the public road, and they can't, you would bring in massive amounts of fill to get it to go toward the outfall, which is this pond. So they have to weave it through, store it a little bit, and then they'll be able to move the water east. So I'll explain a little further. I was not comfortable with the request. So again, this is just a blow up of the 3-1 layout. Approved for removal, condition to save. Obviously, the road was going through there without the wetland encroaching south. And then, of course, the new layout. And that's what they presented. So just again, to why just 8 trees, there's a couple exits here, they were previously approved. So this is the exhibit with the tree numbers and the sizes. So again, you can see this is due to the sheet size, they kind of cut it off, but this is the new layout, the office. And this is the, the red I'll explain the green, I'll explain, but they're the 8 trees being considered tonight. So I blew up the top half. We have the bus entrance. They'll have the secured employee parking and the office. And then the buses will head into this area. We have a required buffer. One thing I did fail to mention, go back to this. This is this line represents a conservation easement. So that was agreed upon with the meetings with the neighborhood and what have you to create a buffer against those residents. So there's that constraint as well. So these are the 3 trees in the building. 149, 151, and 150. This is the lower portion where they propose the pond. 4 Bs, 1 C, or 1 D. I wasn't comfortable with that. So I put pen to paper, suggested a few things. Sebastian with ADC came back with this, and I'll be supporting this. So we sacrifice a 196, which I do not have a photo of, but we saved 3 Bs. And the pipe would come from the road through here into the storage and then head east into the outfall. That's tree 207. So staff recommends approval with the condition to plant 194.5 caliber inches of native canopy trees on the project site. Must not missed. Preserve tree 5, 6, and 204. Must use 4-foot chain link fences, tree protection barricades. Must have a certified arborist treat both grand and protected trees within 25 feet of any construction. And the landscape plan to be approved by DRB and tiers.
Right, thank you, Eric.
Question.
Yes.
So the dissection of the wetlands, is that a bridge or is it a bridge over the wetlands? or-
No, sir. They, and I'll let the applicant speak more in depth, but it's my understanding, when you get into wetland impacts, there are certain thresholds you want to try and stay under, and they're staying under the required threshold, not to delay the project months out. But I'll let her, so.
Good, okay, thank you. Is the applicant present? Excellent. And I'll ask real quick, is there anybody present that is opposed to the application?
I'm Sebastian Davis with ADC Engineering. Right, we're the civil engineers. In general, this project came before you all, and we had a completely different, not completely different layout, but a different layout, which actually had more buses stored on it. We went back and talked with the school district, and they agreed to sacrifice a number of buses to reduce the area that we were going to impact. So by doing so, it helped us come up with this particular plan. So we did shift the bus parking. Well, we started back a little bit. With the more buses, there'll be more bus driver parking. So we had more bus driver parking on the northern half. So by making that buses smaller, we were able to fit a smaller number of bus drivers in a smaller area. The main constriction and the reason why we came back, as Eric had mentioned, is because of the growth of wetlands. If that had not happened, we would have kept with the current plan. So we tried to pivot and try to find the best solution to fit the smaller building and bus parking in the smallest area that we could, but also preserve the minimum number of buses the school district needs. So we tried to look at all the different options about how to drain the low area, which does need to be drained to be serviceable. So we looked at it and we came up with this option. Then upon further review, like Eric mentioned, we came back and found out what he would support and what he would not support. And we went back and looked at what we could change to align more with what the city could support. So we came up with the alternate layout to save 3 more B trees and shift the pond size and shape of it to meet that need.
All right. Since there's no one, is there anybody else present that wants to speak in favor of the application? If that's it, then we'll close this application to the public. We'll open it up to the board for discussion and questions. Thank you.
I would like to add, I failed to mention that you'll have their public written comments that were received through Innovate. We had one individual submit for both River Road projects. Removing more grand trees along River Road is ruining the integrity and beauty of Johns Island. And that's repeated for both the River Road comments.
Thank you.
It's
Eric.
actually slightly phrased differently.
Oh, okay.
It
For
is,
B
but-
two, it's continuing to removing grand trees along River Road breaks down the integrity of the community. And
Oh, yes. Sorry.
All right, so I'll start, and I'll actually start with a comment, because the trees that are being removed are not along River Road. So I would say that she didn't actually review the application to voice her disapproval. But I appreciate you working with the city and saving those 3 other B trees. I think that certainly the change in plan was not driven by your desire to make a change. Nature said, hey, we're taking some more land. If you could, there was the question Calvin had about the road, the bridge going across the wetlands. If you could maybe address that for us.
Sure. In working with the city to do the connectivity to the adjacent neighborhood, those were previously established, so we were limited on where we could put our roadway. So we tried to look at what the best option to connect the roads, but also limit our impact. And if we had had all the trees on the plan, you would be able to see that in that particular area, that's the least populated area for grand trees and significant trees. So by putting it there in the shape that we had, it does limit the impact. It could have been in a worse impact if we tried to swing it out like Eric had mentioned.
Correct.
You would actually hit significantly more trees to try and go around the wetlands. So by talking with the school district, they opened themselves up and said, yes, we'll put in for a wetland fill permit to mitigate going through the wetlands instead of going around them, which would actually have significantly more impact. But to that point, the wetland permit that we are applying for is the smallest wetland permit that you can apply for, a nationwide permit under 1/2 acre. And it's extremely difficult to do that with this area just because of the slopes and having to build the road up to keep it above the minimum elevation for the city. So we were fighting that in addition to missing the amount of trees that we could miss, but also providing a road that's actually serviceable and drainable for the particular project that we have. So it's called a nationwide permit, if you all are familiar. That's under 1/2 acre. Is currently under review by the Corps right now.
Okay.
And the Corps is actually the one that came out and reviewed the site. And that's why the wetlands grew. They took some soil samples. It wasn't readily apparent by the eye. That's the reason why the previous determination showed the wetlands where they were.
Very good. Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions or? Okay, I just have this is actually for Eric. Because the application also mentions the reduced impervious construction setback. Typically don't have an issue with that, but is there anything we should add to the conditions?
Just the arborist is going to be involved in.
Perfect. Okay,
So it's 5 trees, not 8. We're
correct.
down 3. I make a motion to move to approve with staff recommendations.
I will second that motion.
That is 5 trees on it. Here it
Yeah.
says still some big.
Yeah, so the motion for approval by Amanda Barton and seconded by Paula Summers. I'm all in favor of the motions. In favor?
I
I'm in
agree.
favor.
I in favor. Any opposed? That one is approved 4-0. Excellent. Would somebody let Jeff know? I guess he's allowed to come back in. Thank you.
Thank you. Good citizen.
Now, to Want me to just go back to A2?
Yes,
Right? So we will now go back, and thank you for A2, thank you for being patient, we're gonna do A2, which is 3530 Maybank Highway on Child Island. TMS is 27900000067, zone LB. Requested variance from section 54-347 to allow parking in a portion of a required landscape buffer. And requested variance from section 54-343 to reduce the required perimeter landscaping requirements. Owner is Hayes Park Development, applicant Forsberg Engineering.
so to begin, the second request for reduced perimeter landscaping has been withdrawn. I've seen an exhibit which I failed to include, but they will be meeting the 5-foot landscape strip because I wasn't supporting that. So we'll deal with the buffer issue. Here's the application. The site is known as Hayes Park. So you got residential, diverse residential in the rear portion of the parent tract with a wonderful little village-like setting up front, commercial village CT, and this particular piece is zoned LB. This is it before all the construction activity began. Note the existing 75-foot Berkeley Electric Co-op easement that runs on the eastern property line. This is a view of it from the street. So the property line runs right down the middle of this easement. The property to the right in this image is also diverse residential and is currently under construction. Middleburg Properties. So this was the master plan brought forth, and I'll explain. In this plan, you see the proposed building was not encroaching into the Maybank highway buffer. But at a later date, this came back to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and due to the curvature and geometry of the new road, which was like realigning Boyd Hayes Drive, which was a dirt road servicing a lot of residents behind this project, it made this little commercial piece a little odd shaped with the easement. So they brought forth a variance to address two buildings encroaching into the Maybank highway buffer. The one on the left, which is now constructed within that little village, and then this one, and they didn't really have a use, but they figured with parking behind it, which DRB and the city wanted and would encourage, they brought that building forth. They did not make an application for the incompatible zoning buffer. So this is LB against diverse residential. The Middleburg property, you have a 25-foot landscape buffer. Of course, you have the easement, which then places the buffer on the the tract of land to be developed on that side of the easement line, but can be reduced by 1/4 of the buffer width or the width of the easement, whichever is smaller. So in this case, it's really a requirement for an 18 3/4 foot buffer. But they didn't make application for that. They were just kind of moving forward, wanted to make sure they could get a building to encroach slightly into the Maybank buffer. So now that they have a developer looking at that property, the idea is for, I believe, a restaurant. Note that this building is about 110 feet long versus this one that was 82 feet long, but I made them put the previously approved encroachment into the buffer overlaid on it. So the portion of the building in the Maybank buffer is matches. But now we have this incompatible zoning issue. And to meet the parking requirements and to have a viable overall commercial district there, they are seeking approval from Berkeley Co-op to improve the easement into some parking. So that line with the green lettering on it is the buffer. So you can see here the 2 points, the 2 or maybe 3 points of the parking lot that touch almost on the property boundary or the right-of-way line. And that's where they they made some adjustments that I've seen already to meet the 5-foot landscape strip there. So this is a blow up closer look at that. So again, you have the easement and then the 75 or 18.75 type D buffer on the development side, which would eat up quite a bit of their land, even if they were to pass through it and find some parking in the easement. But so again, this is not an issue. So they've have received letters of support from the master developer. New Leaf is selling this piece. So they got that, and then they did visit and talk with the Middleburg Communities Group, and they have no concern. So with that, the city obviously was going to deny, it's withdrawn. For the incompatible buffer, the city will recommend approval with a landscape plan that utilizes native plant materials for both TRC and DRB. They must maintain the non-protected and protected trees in the Maybank Highway buffer between the building and supplement that with 5 live oaks. There is a overhead utility line that runs down that side of Maybank Highway. But we want to establish the next generation of live oaks. So, and then must provide documentation from Berkeley Electric Co-op approving the, what was I going to say there? No, the approved landscape plan.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody present that is opposed to this application? Is the applicant present? Is there? Like to speak?
Mike Johnson with Fordbridge Engineering, and I actually brought the exhibit that Eric was referring to.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
So I don't have a lot to add. I think Eric covered it pretty well. We have been working with David Meeks and DRB to make sure that this building is consistent with what the city envisioned, as well as working with Santee Cooper to make sure that what we're proposing is allowable. The plan that's you're looking in front of you right now, we pulled parking outside that 5-foot landscape buffer all around. And we're still providing the same parking. And this encroachment actually is a reduction from the previous master plan into that 18.75 incompatible buffer.
Okay, thank you.
So is it, just for my clarity, is it Berkeley Co-op or Santee Cooper, or what you have here is Central Electric?
So Santee Cooper is the one who actually issues the encroachment permit.
Okay.
They oversee it for, I think it's Berkeley Electric.
Okay, gotcha. All right,
Thank you. With no one opposed, no one else present that's in favor. Application be closed to the public, be open to the board for discussion, comments.
So,
Oh,
go
please.
ahead.
I was just gonna ask if, you mentioned the Middleburg, community was in support. Is that this property of Hamlin at Maybank? Is that the same entity?
The 2 letters we have.
the Hamlet at Maybank LLC, yes, that's the Middleburg Communities project.
That's one and the same, okay.
Yep.
Okay. And, am I correct that we see roadway encroachments into a CDBG easements frequently, correct?
Well, this is interesting because we just had to bring the Hamlet at Maybank back through TRC because there was an oversight on the review process on the utility side. Note this big circle, that's a pole, and the Middleburg property had parking. They had gone and talked to the utility, I guess, and got approval to design that. But then they came back and said, you can't be that close to our pole. So they had to shift gears, bring that project back through TRC to modify, I don't know, probably 12 units in the parking and drive aisles. So this one here obviously has the same issue, but they're okay with planting approved plant material in their right of way. I encourage them to work together all the way. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for you know, butterfly meadows and wildflower meadows and what have you, but we'll make sure that we get some really nice landscaping in there that they'll review and approve. And
Just no trees and the trees that you're talking about.
well, the SC&G and my experience with SC&G now Dominion, they would allow certain understory trees like
Right.
crepes and
You know, you mentioned trees to reestablish the River Road. I mean, the Maybank
Yeah.
Highway.
so you see here,
River Road's at-
SCDOT, you see those few trees in front of this property? 13-inch oak, 20-inch oak, I think they were a little larger than that. The Middleburg project required a left turn lane
Mhm.
heading eastbound. And then also St. John's Water had to extend the water line. So those trees, we had a big meeting out there not too long ago with Parks because I viewed them as right-of-way trees. They're gone. And so what we want, because of the pavement, edge of pavement shift and this roadside swale and all that was in there. So it was unfortunate. They were really overarching. As a matter of fact, when we were there was a huge limb laying on the ground that some truck had just torn out. It was that fresh. So they were going to be problematic with the liens, but they're now gone. So behind this multi-use path is where the pines begin. If I go back to here,
Mhm.
so their building is a little distant behind that that multi-use path. So we're going to keep all the 8-inch and non-grand trees. You know, we'll allow little sapling to come out for some visibility, but that's the requirement to keep the pine and then plant the next generation of live oaks behind that walk.
Okay, interior to the site.
Interior, yeah, on the north side of that
Yep.
multi-use path.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions of the applicant?
Well, since there isn't anybody but the one person who wrote a letter on that isn't given accurate location. And
There's no support literature.
yeah, there's, no, we made the comment, there was a comment, there's one comment about, I think it was that one. Or maybe it was,
That's right.
oh, no, it was the other one. It's
Right. Speed.
yeah, it's B1, yeah. So there was no negative one on this, okay. And the adjacent property owners, okay with it.
I agree. I'll make a motion for approval, of staff recommendations and conditions.
Second.
Spoken by Summer, second by Mr. Yuji. All in favor, I'm in favor. I am
Aye.
in favor, anybody opposed? Approved 5-0. Joe, all right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So then our next item would be item B1. Is that right? Go to B1?
Yes, B1.
All right, B1 is River Road again, Johns Island, TMS 34600000004. Zone PUD. Request a variance for section 54-327 to allow the removal of 10 grand trees. Request a special exception from section 54-327 to allow removal of 4 grand trees, and request a variance from section 54-330 to allow a reduced impervious construction setback near the bases of 3 grand trees. The owner is City of Charleston, applicant Kimberly Horn.
Okay, this is the application. As you mentioned, this is the city-owned site, which the city purchased a few years ago with the intent of building affordable housing. And the applicant, Kimberly Horn. The hardship letter. So this is in what we know as the village at Fenwick. It's a PUD. We have an apartment complex under construction. The purple tract to the right of the crosshatch tract is slated for single family home construction, and then the city tract has been further subdivided with the goal of providing two different affordable housing products. The first is this one with the crosshatching. So just to give you more context, the city viewed this as a optimal location for it. You have shopping, you have some services, banks, you have laundry, mail, post office, hardware, all within walking distance if you were to venture out. Wooded tract, as you well know, abutting Fenwick Hall Plantation. So the city purchased property, and this particular piece of property is peppered with quite a few grand trees. We have a wetland that abuts River Road. The road to the south in this image is Bernice Robinson Road. The mayor just named that road not too long ago. We know it better as the Northern Pitchfork. It's under construction. The project is to provide 90 affordable apartment style units. And then the gray area to the right, the residual land there, be more of a townhouse product. So we ventured out. Obviously, they had a consulting arborist evaluate the trees. We visited the site a couple times. Parking these, it's in a basin, a drainage basin that heads in two different directions. A portion of it heads west under River Road. The other half of it flows towards the Stono marshes of the Stono east. The 1A grade trees in the right on the edge of the wetland and wetland buffer. So a couple massive trees out there. Interesting enough, there's another isolated freshwater wetland in the northeast corner. And at one point they were showing some disturbance to that. And we encouraged them to kind of leave it as a natural area, eventually maybe put a path around it or something to have the residents engage. But that's where the higher concentration of live oak B grade trees are as well. So this is the list of trees, 10 requiring a variance, 1 live oak. It's a double, and it really, those two stems really oppose each other. They really, I don't know what the angle would be between the stems, but they really stretch far away from one another. A couple red oaks, laurel oak, and then another double live oak. Special exceptions are water oaks, and then some modest impacts to 5 trees. We can, if you want, revisit tree by tree, or if you want to ask questions about the trees, we can revisit these are the photos. Very high canopies.
Can you go back one sheet?
Map
54.
54.
So this is a city sketch, which I'll build into my condition, but so they have a really uphill battle with stormwater because they're in a impaired basin. They don't want to send much water that direction, but then they just have to meet all the other requirements. These 2 live oaks, number 11 and 17, I revisited just last week. I was hoping they were higher quality. I couldn't quite remember. It had been several weeks since we were in the field, but number 11 is a split and it really arches away. The canopy is way up. then the number 17 is a double. And again, they start to oppose each other, searching for sunlight. So I was hoping for better, but I'm still kind of stuck on this idea. There's a wonderful, I think, opportunity. I know it's a challenge, but when you look at the overall plan that, so you have 3 buildings, obviously 3 different building types. I forget the exact number of units in each building. And then you have that, the smaller building is the leasing office and community center. I just feel like there's maybe an opportunity to have a really cool interior space. But it may be a wet pond. But so my condition is to study those 2 trees, and if able, maintain it at grade, keep the other non-grand trees around those trees and keep the canopy kind of interacting with one another and not subject them to wind throw and sun scold and all that sort of thing. But so that's just one of my conditions, but tough site overall. We've met a couple times with DRB, which will have review over the architecture. I don't think it's gone to DRC, the Mayor's Design Review Committee yet, but it will need to. A lot of good positive city there was a massive building at one point on the site. And it's been broken down in smaller footprints and going better with trees. So with that said, staff recommends the following conditions: must plant 292.5 inches of native trees on the project site in the form of 2.5-inch canopy trees, 2.5 or 6 to 8 foot understory trees. I'll allow understory trees in this scenario to be counted toward mitigation. A portion of the inches can be planted on the Fenwick property with the owner's permission. So there's an opportunity to plant a few live oaks possibly on the Fenwick property. And then a portion of the inches as a contribution to the city street tree program if they get into trouble meeting the full 292. Must use 4-foot chain link fences, tree protection barricades, must have a certified arborist prune and treat the grand trees to be preserved on the project site, and must study the interior space as per the city sketch to possibly preserve 2 red oaks and the surrounding protected trees in a park-like setting.
Thank you, Eric. Applicant is present. Is there anybody present that is opposed? Like to speak?
Hello, my name is Andrew Todd Burke. I'm a landscape architect with Kinley Horn. Just wanted to thank Eric and the city staff members. As he mentioned, we went through many iterations on this site, many competing factors between the stormwater, the grand trees, the need for affordable housing, and just really trying to get all those things together. So I think this resulted in a team effort that we're all pretty happy with. And just to let the board know, Eric's condition of trying to preserve those interior trees is not a surprise. It is our goal moving forward, but we do have some pretty stringent stormwater measures to hit. So we will certainly work on trying to manipulate that area and still get the storage that we need for stormwater while also preserving what could be a really cool kind of interior area. But we are here for any questions that you may have, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. I will read in that we did have Courtney Morris West did write in on this application, removing 4 grand trees along River Road is ruining the integrity and beauty of Johns Island. That was October 2nd, 2023. Close the public portion of the application. This time we'll open it to the board discussion, comments, and I can start. So Eric, just if I didn't hear right, just let me know. But the gray area, is that where you said the townhouse units might
Yeah,
go?
so I wish Gianna Johnson was here with Housing and Community Development. I don't know if they've gone out to RFP with that yet. I don't know if it will, I don't know the process per se, but the city's intent was to provide, an opportunity for somebody, an individual that met the, the income criteria to have a choice. apartment style versus townhouse. So the city, when they looked at this property, they, I believe, had the Civic Design Center look at it with the data they had available to try and run some numbers and it actually had to go back to city council for an amendment to the PUD to allow, I think, a total of 150 units. 90 in this project and residual there. So
So it'll be coming back to us at some point.
it would most likely be coming back yet.
Then I probably asked this before. How does the city make a contribution to the street tree program? Where do they get the money from? My taxes going. We just tell them to plant the trees.
Right, right.
So, I think that,
Well,
Yes.
the arrangement, again, I don't know, but there's a developer. You know,
Okay.
the city owns the
Yes.
land, there's a developer, he has a budget, you know,
okay,
where that entity has a budget. So,
well, I think that, as the applicant said, I think we certainly need as much, lower income housing as we can get with cost of living in this area, so I'm supportive of the application.
It's affordable housing, not
Affordable,
affordable.
sorry,
Yeah.
affordable.
I think my only concern is since they haven't designed the other portion of the site. You know, they didn't look at the whole, they didn't master plan the whole site really, well, as far as I know, looking at this. You know, there's a lot of blue, right, a lot of bees on that far corner.
I
You
think
know,
that
and when they come back,
our corner's probably protected from the
from the
wetland area that's
wetlands,
up
yeah,
there.
yeah.
But I mean, you can certainly see the 3Ds and
Yep,
there's some Cs that
there's
would
some
come out of the
Cs.
other parcel.
And then the bees could be retained, yeah. And the trees are not as good on this end.
So it's a nice plan.
I mean, the housing. The affordable housing is needed. Now, is this one that's, is it one of the ones where the developer does it and then after 30 years it can revert to market?
I don't know the full details.
I don't know the full details of the deal, but I did want to add on the stormwater that you see here is master plan for both sites. So even though the site, there is a plan not locked in for the township side, it will be affordable. That is definitely locked in, of course. But stormwater will be designed to handle both parts of the project.
If you just state your name for the record,
Mary Ann Sutherland, California.
thank you. Bob. As low as it is.
So Eric, when you were talking about, can you go back to your image where you were talking about winding through the,
I had to not present my sketch I presented to the applicant, but I put hard edges on two kidney shaped like ponds with so I don't know, you know, I'm not an engineer, whether that saved, you know, volume or whatnot, that obviously adds a cost. But I just was thinking, and then I couldn't remember, I couldn't remember if those red oaks were single stem or not.
you're talking about the red oaks are what we're looking at in the photo. One has what looks like.
That's
gravel
right.
in the base of it.
So I was, but I still like
But
the.
those aren't trees 11 and 17, or are they?
What's that?
There are trees 11
11
and
and
17,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and then the one on the left is a water oak. The other yellow one behind the leasing center. I was trying to create like a vista down between the residential unit and leasing center and have your eye go to that B grade tree and create a space in there.
Yeah. So wait. Any other questions of the applicants? With a second, or some ready to make a motion. Any other questions or comments?
No, just secret.
We have a motion.
So those are all C grades anyway that are in the retention area.
Yes.
And I'd rather see more blues saved overall on the side.
I'll make a motion for approval with staff recommendations. Right. For approval from Webb, second by Ms. Martin. All in favor? I in favor? I in favor.
I in favor.
Any opposed? Approved. Thank you. Our, sorry, next to last.
B3.
Item is item B3. That is 1656 Savannah Highway. TMS is 35007000202, zone GB. Requested variance for section 54-237 to allow the removal of 2 grand trees. That's the right section. And requested variance for section 54-327 to omit 15 protected trees per acre requirement. Owner PMSC LLC and applicant is Kim Rickman.
So this is the application. Their letter addressing hardship. And I'll stop with this and the trivia question. Who can tell me what this site was before Chick-fil-A?
You guys. Which one is? What is it?
He can tell you when the
It's
storm is still.
Evergreen Street, so that's what, that's Wapu, right? Wapu Road,
Nope,
no,
17, but I'll give you more context. Dee Peckers is on the corner there into that shopping area. You don't remember Shoney's?
no. Oh, I had the, oh my God, I had the worst experience ever there. It's the only time I've eaten at Shoney's.
All right, well, Shoney's went away a few years ago and Chick-fil-A came in. And as you see a trend around the city, very successful restaurants. So again, this was a redevelopment. So a lot of the trees are young planted trees, but when they get to 8 inches, they are protected. We don't, say just because they were required by the city to do a parking lot, but when they grow. So they have an issue with capacity in their drive-through. This is a view from that little drive into that adjacent shopping center, looking at the newly planted trees and then some trees that existed on the common property line. This is the 1 lane. And the 1 lane at the window. So again, you can see newly planted trees, well, relatively new planted trees, right? I don't know, how many years have you? 2010, so 13 years. So capacity, so they're gonna, the plan or they're working with the owner of the adjacent restaurant to grab a land lease to move that curb line out and have 2 receiving lanes. But their hope would be to have 3 order lanes. We have that connection to Evergreen Street. We have a need for their dumpsters and what have you, and circulation coming off of Savannah Highway. So TRC has looked at this. They're working with our traffic and transportation department on getting the flow right, but they are in favor because I think I've heard them say that at certain peak times the traffic's in Savannah Highway. So I visited the site. Obviously, we've had conversations. These are the trees, so not all these trees are 8 inches in diameter. They're just the trees that have to come out to rework the parking lot. Some are below 8 and some are above, obviously. But we do have 2 grand trees, and one is I'm gonna call it this is a blow up. This is the list, and I have the report from the consulting arborist. Happens to be Marshall Bow with Charleston Tree Experts, but it was 82 pages, so I just said available upon request. He's calling them laurel oaks. I think there's maybe a little bit of genetic variation. I'm calling them a willow oak, both still a category 2 tree, but this is the list and their ratings, and this is his report. 68 page, I'm sorry. So the 24-inch willow oak is being routinely pruned by the Minion. So it was an original tree when Shoney was there and was in that zone between the 2 restaurants. So it was able to be maintained, but the power line, I think, has been there for years. So I'm not at all upset to see this one be supported for removal. However, this one is a little different. Again, I think this must have been behind the Shoney's. I don't recall what was all back behind the store. I think there was parking all the way around it. But again, there must have been some green space there. It's got pretty good form. It's got good solid trunk. We did build the drive-through lane. So my recommendation is to preserve this one and hold that curb line. We can, if necessary, we can modify the nose of that little parking lot island that forces the cars into the lane and those 2 parking spaces to the right. But we need to kind of hold that curb line to not get into the root system a whole lot. So they'll work through that. So staff recommends the condition. There are 2 other, I'm sorry, if you will, the tree by the dumpsters, I think is a 21-inch. And then there is the next red tree down on the drive-through lane is being pruned, but I think that's like a 20-inch willow oak. So they're the 2 sizable. I've come up with a number based on the modification of the parking lot and hopefully getting some more capacity in those lanes to plant 28 caliber inches of native canopy trees on the site. They can upsize their parking lot trees, must preserve the 26-inch willow oak in the adjacent curb. At staff's direction, must meet parking lot landscape requirements with the use of native trees, must use 4-foot chain link fence for tree protection, and submit a landscape plan for both DRB and TRC approval.
Excellent. Thank you, Eric. Asked the question, even though I can see the answers. Is there anybody present that opposed? All right, applicant is present. That be heard.
With Enerplan, who's the architecture and engineering company. As you stated, the intent is to pull more cars actually onto the lot into our ordering system. We've already looked at the plan that Eric sketched up in order to pull that curb line and preserve the tree in the northeast corner. And so we are support to do that as well. The 2-lane entry go into the 3 lanes, but we can still have as much stacking actually in ordering as possible. Eliminate the traffic onto us now. And as you stated, I did meet with Dominion earlier. The trees along where we're proposing where you actually get your food will be heavily pruned. So we are working with them, but the trees, I think they're degraded that we're looking to remove along that line, that western property line.
Okay, anything else? All right,
Any questions?
excellent. Then you want to be heard? Excellent. We'll close this out. Or do you have?
I had a question. So does the, and maybe you're too, but does the building addition trigger any added parking? Or what we're seeing is to make up parking lost like I'm just, most of this is, most of these trees are for the aisles, but it looks like we're trying to make up 4 spaces.
Personally, I can't recall. I don't know what their number crunching for, what is that?
I mean, I'm
Is that
sure they're
short?
right at the parking number, right?
Number 30, number 31, you could retain potentially.
I think with the new design, we can use one parking space.
And I guess you're right at your number per zone, per zoning right now, or at the end of this.
You would state your name for the record.
But that addition isn't adding seating, right? Or is that,
You actually are gonna be losing some seating.
So is number 31 being removed to add a space to make up for the one that's being lost elsewhere? Or-
Yes.
I can't see that.
yeah, the part of this, yeah.
It's the
Tree
one
number
down,
31 is a 7-inch red oak anyway. It's not protected.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
It was one that was planted, obviously,
Yep.
with the new
Yep,
parking layout.
yep.
And we can't do anything about it, but it's just ironic that you
Right.
probably don't need all that parking, especially the way the amount of drive-through.
We'll get a new tree will be planted in that island opposing the other one. Yeah.
well, okay, so we'll close this application to the public, be open to the board now just for discussion and questions. Thank you for the presentation. I'll start and say that, yes, the traffic does back onto Savannah Highway, but typically only when I'm trying to get to Costco. Come downtown and then it's. But
You should go on Sunday.
yeah, I can go to church on Sunday. But yes, I drive by that frequently and it is very busy. So anything that could be done to get cars off the road would be positive for the whole area. They can put a stoplight right there, move the one from Vestages.
And all sides of the property are surrounded by other commercial or diverse business. Is that accurate?
Yes,
Nothing, no residential backs up to anything there. right?
no,
You know, because it's
Yeah.
commercial to the
Yep,
right.
yep,
and behind.
yep.
Good point.
So, and the applicant is in favor, supportive of the change. that
Can you
Eric
go back to the
suggested.
it's all GB.
Okay, and then across like Evergreen and you, that's where the residential starts, or?
Yes. On that corner.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
STR. I think when Shoney's operated, we didn't have the connection to Evergreen. We created that extra. We created that.
It's vital. It's the only way to get the stoplight.
It's going out,
Okay.
yeah.
I think we've got an applicant that's agreed to the city's change. There's no opposition. So if anyone, if there's no further questions, is there a motion?
Yeah, if it had backed up to the residential, then I would have asked if they talked or had met with the neighborhood. But I think it's fine in this case. And we didn't have any letters or attendance.
Correct. Nobody wrote in.
I'll make a move. To approve. With that recommendations,
Right. Motion for approval from
thank you.
Amanda Martin. Anyone second?
I'll second.
Right, seconded by Mr. Webb. All in favor, I in favor.
I in
favor. You opposed? One opposed. Kelvin opposed. It's approved. 4-1. Thank you. All right, that's it. The meeting is adjourned. Have a great day. Be at your restaurant later today.
So when it was shown us, we'd been up very, very late one night. And we had to go pick up Walter's brother at the airport.
Oh,
And
Alright.
I'd never been to Shoney's before.
thank you.
And so